Hi, I'm Andy Acker, Director of Education in North America for Schluter-Systems.
And I'm Brian Bouchard, the Regional Manager for the Northeast.
What we want to discuss here in this segment is what is the difference between a crack isolation membrane and an uncoupling membrane like DITRA. There is discussion out there in the industry, and there seems to be a need to kind of clear that up.
Right. The biggest difference is in the composition of the two membranes. A crack isolation membrane relies on its composition, which is more of a flexible membrane, whereas DITRA, it gets its function from the fact that it's a geometric design with free space underneath.
That's right.
Channels.
So just at the beginning, just to look at the material, typically a crack isolation membrane is a flat material. That's elastomeric in some way, kind of stretchy.
Right.
Where you can see DITRA, an uncoupling membrane, definitely has a lot going on here. How about the need for movement joints? We've got the slab here, Bryant.
Yep. Here's a control joint.
And a crack. So we've covered both of the most common things that you'll see in concrete slabs here. What would happen if we put a crack isolation membrane over the top of this?
Yeah, for the most part, most crack isolation membrane companies will recommend soft joints on both sides of the tile that is spanning the control joint.
Or the crack, for that matter.
Exactly.
So if the crack's meandering across the room at some odd angle, you're still going to have to follow not only with the crack isolation membrane, but with the soft joints on each side of the tile that's bridging on that.
Yeah,
is that correct?
Yeah, it's not easy to do that.
Okay, but with DITRA, that's not the case.
Right. If we're using DITRA, we cover the entire floor, and now we basically can do our installation based on our tile pattern. So we can either be perpendicular with the control joint, we can go diagonal, and all we need to do is really make sure we have movement joints in the field of tile.
So the finished surface, the veneer, the tile veneer, will have movement joints, soft joints, at the location and frequency dictated by Schluter.
Right.
Which is?
Currently it's 16 to 20 feet.
About 16 to 20 feet in each direction for an interior application. So that would do it. So that's a big benefit too. You can just disregard what's going on in the slab below DITRA, but if you're using a crack ISO, then it's really going to dictate where you're going to put soft joints, how many, and that sort of thing. So
and I think you can realize how one's going to look better than the other.
Yeah, that's certainly for aesthetics and for just application time and effort and so forth. How about moisture migration? If you have a slab on grade or below grade, that could be an issue with that moisture coming up through the slab. There's a difference there, distinct difference between the crack ISO and an uncoupling membrane there too.
Especially with hydrostatic pressure. So when you've got a flat membrane, there's really no place for that to go. It's going to build up, okay? Whereas again, going back to DITRA with the free space, there's a place for that hydrostatic pressure to be equalized.
So it releases underneath there, so it can manage that, where a flat membrane is going to build up, and many times we find them blistering or removing themselves off of that. So also when we're talking about moisture in a slab, let's talk about new construction.
Yeah,
where the slab has just been put in, there's a difference there too.
Yeah, let's say this was poured on Monday morning. Well, actually with DITRA, we could be installing the DITRA the next morning. So the good thing about DITRA is that we're able to go over concrete that's just been poured, and the DITRA actually gives a benefit to the concrete. It's going to help the concrete cure slower, which will reduce the shrinkage cracks, and it allows us to get our installation done very quickly. And whereas with a crack isolation membrane, we typically have to wait 28 days.
At least 28 days.
That's the first sign that you could even do it.
That's right.
So it might be even longer.
So you can imagine this slab underneath the DITRA curing at a nice slow rate, nothing to rob it of its moisture prematurely, and that's always bad for Portland cement of any type, certainly in a slab. If it's robbed of its moisture too quickly, it won't have the strength. And you're right, it'll shrink quickly, and in many cases that's where you'll lead to some of the cracks. So if we were actually to put some DITRA down, what is the process here? If we have a slab, crack, seam, or whatever we have, what are we going to do here?
Yeah, always a good idea to take a sponge.
It's a good idea to just do a quick little introduction of a little bit of moisture. You don't want the slab's first drink of water to be the water out of your bond coat, so we're just now giving it a little drink of water. Depends on how old it is. It could be a little thirsty, so that's going to be important to get that on there. Okay, so the thin set Bryant is going to be using here could be any of the thin set mortars from Schluter-Systems or dry set mortars from other manufacturers. That's what we're going to use. And if you look at the thin set, it's a little looser than you would typically use to set tile. We want the consistency to be fairly fluid, but it's still able to hold a notch when we actually notch it to gauge how much thin set we're going to leave. So good tile setting practice is always to do what's called burning in the thin set. You're using the flat side of the trowel to make certain you're making good contact and really working that stuff into the substrate so it's going to grab a hold of it very well. And then we're going to spread the thin set out, still using the flat side of the trowel. And then the last thing you do will gauge how much thin set you'll leave by using the proper notch trowel. This happens to be a notch trowel that we offer here. It's called the DITRA trowel, of course. That would be the proper one for here, but you could use other trowels that are about the same notch size, little under quarter by quarter, so keep that in mind. And then that's all you need to do is put that right on there. So give the slab a little drink, go ahead and burn in the thin set, and then get your coverage down, and you're ready to put the DITRA. Now on the back side of DITRA, as you saw a little bit earlier, we do have a polypropylene fleece here, and that's going to be very absorbent when it's in a non-woven mesh like that, and it's going to draw that thin set right up into that fleece, and then that's what's going to give us the mechanical fastening to bond the DITRA to the floor via the thin set. So it's that simple to put in. You can see you can use a wood float, you could use a roller, but nothing over 75 pounds because we don't want it point loaded too hard. And that's it. It's put in place. I think we can pull up a corner here, take a look and see what kind of coverage we have. You can see it's very good, so we know we're in good shape there. We'll just work that back in. It's always good to check that coverage to make certain you're getting that. And that's in. You can walk on it right away. There's no need to wait for it. You can actually start chalking lines and set tile right now. Like we said earlier, even if it's a brand new fresh slab, it could have been just put in yesterday. So there's a bunch of different reasons that you should really consider DITRA, an uncoupling membrane, over a crack ISO. You can see it's got a lot of superior performances. I think that's important. So this is a good little video for instruction, but there's other ways to get instruction besides.
Right. Please reference our Schluter handbook for DITRA because it references this installation and many others. So please check out the handbook, and thanks again for watching this video.
Okay, thank you.